Okay, back on the Dana 36 today. So I built a little torque arm setup here that just mounts to the pinion yoke, clamp it to the bench, because you got to put 200 pounds of torque on this thing, which, you know, seems excessive, and you don't want that wandering around when you do it. So first thing I'm going to do is put a little bit of, I clean the threads with paint, pre-paint prep. Put a little daub of red Loctite on there just because, you know, want to make it miserable to take back off if I ever need to. Now this is a new pinion nut. They say to use a new one. I don't know if it really matters, but I put them on used, I put them on new, I've never had a problem, so. Now this is not a crush sleeve rear end. The Dana 36 is a set depth, so that's why you go such a excessive torque. So I'm just going to suck this in to start with the impact slowly. Okay, I got a few Wagga Waggas on it. Now, put this on. I've got my wrench set to 200. There's only one bolt, might as well go for it. Oh yeah, that's gonna be a lot. There it is, set. Okay, it's 200 foot-pounds. That's a lot. Okay, so I'm gonna label this tool, put it on the shelf, because it is handy to have for the next one I do. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start fabricating I'm going to fabricate a little stand for this rear end for the Dana 36. And the reason I want to do that right now is so that when I finish cleaning this, I have something nice to set it on and it's not going to get all, you know, stove up and thrashed around. And it's accessible to all sides. So I'm going to whip that out next, and I'll bring you back when I get that done. Okay, I'm out here in my open air sandblasting booth. I just gave this a quick once over to brighten up the aluminum a little bit. I masked it off real good. I don't want it just getting into any seals or anything like that. So, got that cleaned up. I'm gonna blow it off really good with air before I bring it back in, put it on the stand, but that cleaned that right up. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna hit all these aluminum, these cast aluminum parts. I'm gonna actually hit them with some diamond clear coat. I'm just using, I haven't shown you this yet. This is my Harbor Freight circa 1992 sandblaster, you know, pressurized pot sandblaster. And I got a little hack that I did to make this thing work. Jonathan over at Vaughnville Village Garage tried it, said it worked well for him too. But I made a little plate, welded it to the back, and then I mounted this little vibrator on it. This is a vibratory compactor. Typically you see these used in equipment that, you know, fills concrete forms and stuff like that, but this is just a little plate motor and it has offset weights in there and they spin around. And when you turn this on, it stops all the clogging. So all the material, instead of funneling down into the hole, it settles fairly flat in there and it works really, really nice. Since I started using that, I've had no trouble with this. Before that, I was constantly screwing around trying to keep the flow going, and you know, since I put that on, this thing runs flawlessly. So good little hack. This is just an Amazon part. I think it was 30 bucks. And it made this little pot blaster infinitely more valuable to the shop. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. It cleaned it right up nice. I'm going to take this back in now, probably stick it back on the stand. And I'll show you the stand when I get it back in there. But I've got a bunch of other parts. I might do some of them out here. Most of the time I'll do them in the blast cabinet. But this thing works so good now. It might just be quicker to to do some of these parts out here. So I'm going to try it both ways and see what works best. But blast cabinet works good. It just tends to be a little slower process, where this thing just really lets it eat. So that's kind of where I'm at. Going to start the reassembly process soon, but first thing I'm going to do is seal all this cast aluminum with a nice gloss clear coat. It should look pretty good. That way it doesn't get all the black spots and the crappy look to it again. So anyway, wanted to get this out here and get this done this morning before the sun gets up there and starts to wail on me. It's supposed to be up in the mid to upper 80s again today and tomorrow, so I really want to knock this stuff out this morning. So here we are, looking good. I like it. Okay, so I put this back onto a little stand here, and I built this stand will work for Dana 44 or Dana 36, and it's just going to make it a lot easier for me to rebuild this thing not in the car. So, or the truck in this case. So I whipped up this little stand, got it all set up. I'm going to take this in the other room and start putting the clear coat on it now. The diamond clear, direct to metal clear coat. It's typically used on rims and stuff like that, but it should give me a nice finish on this raw aluminum and keep it from getting stained and clapped up with brake dust and all kinds of weirdness. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Now I'm going to put on some additional bracketry in the front here to pick up the trailing arms once those are in place, but I wanted to get the trailing, I got the metal all cut, but I wanted to get the trailing arms on the rear end before I did that, so that I can, gauge where everything goes and make sure that it's appropriate. So again, these are the mounting points as seen on the C4 Corvette, and it works pretty good. So I'm happy with it. My seal seems to be holding great. No drip, no grease. And once I get this clear coated, I can start reassembly. So I'm going to roll this into the paint booth, hit it with some diamond clear, and get ready to start doing that. Meanwhile, I've been running through some smaller parts in the blast cabinet. They're clean up. This aluminum cleans up so fast. It's way better than dealing with your steel and stuff like that, because you don't have any rust or pitting to get out. So it just one touch with the glass bead and it just looks like this. So I'm gonna get this going, get it first coat of clear on it, and then I will start to keep going on the smaller parts and start cycling those through as well. And then hopefully the next step will be reassembly. All right, so I've got all the parts clean, sealed, painted, powder coated, whatever's appropriate for the particular area. I've got it up on my little jig here. I put my jig up on the table so it's right up in my teeth. Everything looks good. Pretty happy with that. I think this is the look I'm looking for. It did darken the aluminum a lot, but I don't care. That's fine. It's just I'm looking to protect it and keep it from getting crappy. So first thing I'm going to do is push bushings or press the bushings back into the trailing arms and the strut lengths. Now this is the energy suspension bushing set, polyurethane. I'll show you what I'm into. Okay, so these are the trailing arms. This is the lubricant that they supply with the kit. I've just been spreading it with my finger. I was using a little acid brush, but it was shedding fibers, so I didn't want to, shedding bristles, so I didn't want to do that too much. So these are very simple. All you do is you have two different sizes for the Corvette, a small size and a large size. The ends are the same on the dog bones, and you just press them in. Just push them in super easy. Then you, they call out, I didn't think you did this, but they do call out putting a little bit of the grease in between, anywhere where the metal contacts the polyurethane. I didn't think you'd want that in certain areas because I don't think you want that polyurethane spinning inside the dog bone, but that's what the instructions say. I read it 3 times, so I'm gonna do what they say. Okay, I know when we put it together, we will ultimately, you know, grease these surfaces too, because these will definitely rub. But, you know, is what it is. So then you just take these little sleeves and push those in. They go in a little mean at first. And I might even use the press just to get them in nice and even and take them home. Some of them will go right through, others won't. And that's it. Just push those in until they're flush, and then you rinse and repeat. Okay. I do love having a press in the shop. I just recently purchased this not too long ago, and I spent a few extra bucks and converted it over to air over hydraulic system, largely because, you know, when you run in with two hands and you're sitting here trying to pump and all that stuff, it just becomes a pain. So this came out great. It's so much more enjoyable using it now. But yeah, that's big help. Especially when you're doing log things, like I was trying to press the bushings out of a sway bar yesterday, and it was, you definitely needed two hands on the sway bar. So having the foot pedal for the air over hydraulics worked really well. Okay, this setup here is a little weird. Not really sure why. So again, same story, grease the inside of the boss a little bit. Just use the old M1 Mod 1 finger. Don't have to go crazy with it, just enough to make it. It's very thick, sticky grease. This is not like wheel bearing grease. It's very strange. Okay, so now for this guy, they have these internal bushings that are ultimately the same size, but with different size collars in them. And then they have these spacer bushings. So on the wide side, the spacer bushings go in first, like so. Okay, now we got to grease that. Again, just a very light film. I think it's mostly just so the urethane slides better in there. Now, here's the part where there's absolutely no instructions, but I'm going to assume the larger bolt goes on the large end. Take my sleeve out, I'll push these in. That's weird. That doesn't even seem long enough. Okay, almost screwed these up. So, luckily, haven't been to the dump yet, but the way this is supposed to work is the smaller, tighter collar. I think this is kind of a universal set. So this collar goes down on the small end here. On the large end, you don't use a collar. You have to use these spacers that were originally supplied in the other, from the car. So I still had these in the trash, luckily. And you press these in, and that is that side of things. So I'm gonna clean these up real quick, paint them so they don't rust, and then get this together. But luckily I still had these. I was able to find them in my scrap metal bucket. from when I pressed all this stuff out. So these were just in a small collar like this, which pretty much matches that. So I'm thinking that's what they really meant to say. They were talking about some sleeve washers that have a return on the inside, but I didn't find anything like that. That's what came apart. I watched the video, thank God, and saw that this is what was in there to begin with. So I will go ahead and clean these up in the glass cabinet, hit them with some, I'll probably just hit them with some black caliper paint because I still have a can going that hasn't kicked off yet, and finish these up. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is get the strut arm brackets back on. And get those, those are big bolt. I torqued those up at 50 pounds. The book I think says 40, but 40 just doesn't quite seem like enough. Probably should have considered some orange Loctite on that too, but we're just gonna get her torqued up. I put the nuts forward on this just because all the other bolt heads are on the back too for the cover. I don't think it matters. It's 50. And 50. All right, next thing I want to do is put in the new U-joints. These are pretty easy. I did buy some new ones. There really wasn't anything wrong with the older ones, but you know, when you have these apart, you might as well do them, right? So what I do is I take the one cap off and I push it in as far as I can by hand. Take the other cap off, set it aside for a second. Then you can basically finagle this in and then get it back into that first cap. Then when I line up my second cap and get it in there. Now to make sure they go in even, I like to split the difference a little bit and get the U-joint in between and just kind of lightly into both caps a little bit. Then I will run the press. Ooh, that went kind of weird. Yeah, okay, it's right on. Then I push them until they're both flush. You don't want to go any further than that. Then take just use a little socket. Push this side down until I can get the clip in. And it went way too far, but that's okay. Just take the clip, set it in there. Get that locked in place, like so. Flip it over, push this side down until I hit that clip. Don't want to go too far. You don't want to obviously damage the other clip. Then put this clip in like so. Then I check this side. If I see it sprung up a little bit like that, I'll just put it back in the press and just press this side down until they even up. And that's it. Clips installed. U-joints in, everything looks right. Okay, rinse and repeat. 3 more. Next up is the knuckle. So you have this rather large cast aluminum piece here, which I think it's called the knuckle. Then there's this little brake caliper plate attachment. It goes on there. But not like that. I think it goes on like that. No. What am I into here? Yeah, it goes like this. Right, okay. Then all of this sits down on the wheel hub, wheel bearing hub. I bought new ones. The old ones they looked fine, but you know, when you got it apart, why risk it? I paint these with a caliper paint just because I don't like them getting all rusty eventually. I don't paint any of the mating or machine surfaces, obviously, and I try to keep the paint out of the bearing. But this is kind of what we're into. So it's a symmetrical 3-bolt pattern, so you just set this down on there any which way. And then you have these 3 Torx bolts with a washer. And I'm going to use just a spot of orange Loctite. I find that works a little better for aluminum. It's not quite as aggressive as red, but better than blue. So, hey, why not? Okay. So we'll start those down into the holes. Get them threaded into the wheel bearing. There's one. I'll flip this up so you can see these in a second. Let me just get them started so it doesn't spin on me. Okay, so that's a steel threaded plate, but that's what they look like. All right, now, so because that's steel on steel, I don't mind using a power tool on it. If it was into an aluminum thread, I wouldn't. So I'll just tap these down in a little, just until I get a couple of clicks. Then I'll torque them, and I'm torquing those to about 50 pounds. There we go. Good enough. And one more. I better go this way. There we go. All right, torqued. Next step is you need to take the drive flange or drive yoke. There is a small little washer with a flange that goes onto the drive yoke like so, and then that gets inserted down into the wheel bearing. Flip it up. Get it so you can work on it. Then there's a large flat washer, a big nut. I do not usually Loctite these because they have a cotter pin attachment. And then I'll just run it in with this. Now, because that is a bottomed out surface, it isn't like a, except if I put the nut on upside down, dummy. Show you what I mean. Oops, great. There's a little flat surface here that is meant to be on the hub itself. I mean, on the washer. Just to provide a more consistent torque. right. There we go. Whoa. All right, now. Then I have my little crown washer here. Find out where it fits the best. Lined up with the hole for the cotter pin, and then I'll throw a cotter pin in it. All right, these are now ready to go on. Once I get the cotter pins in it. I've kept everything in bags, so I have all the nuts and washers for the left rear and all the bolts and fasteners for the left rear in separate bags from the right rear. Way I could just kind of keep track of everything as it goes back together. Okay, let's put the pieces together here. First thing I'm going to do is apply a little bit of lubricant to the polyurethane bushings. That one's already done. Just get these so that they rotate freely and don't squeak. I don't want this squeaky bushing. Okay, now, first things first, I pressed in the solid bushing in that side. Now I've just got to get it up into the plate and get my bolt through it. Okay, that's in. The nut and washer and nut on this side. Okay, let me just double check. I prick punch this so I'd kind of get it close to putting it back to where it's supposed to be. I don't know if it is or if it isn't. All this will be aligned again and for real at some point. Huh. Okay, fair enough. All right, so that's in place. Now, I've got to take and put the knuckle on. And that's as simple as pushing this on, which went on a little mean on the other side, but all right, that's close. You have a look. Send the bolt through. Washer and nut on the other side. Okay, good. Now, it's time to install the half shaft. 2, 3, 4, and then 8 of those. Had me panicked for a second. I lost those. They were in a separate bag from everything else. We got it now. Now, let's take the half shaft. Put it in here, line it up. And put the plates on. All right, put the other side on. And tighten these up. Pretty simple. That's a M8 socket. Okay. Now I'm going to start one bracket on up here just so that I can hook it onto it easily. Just get it started. Snug those up, just not snug them up, just draw them in a little bit. Should do it. Okay, now what we have to do is lift this up, drop that of course, spin this up out of the way. Could use another set of hands for this part, I guess. There we go. Just put the jack under the end so it kind of holds it somewhere near right. Then I am going to finagle this in by just angling this in and out. Okay, put the other loop on, a couple of screws, and that should do it. All right, now spin it up. So those guys are on the top, get the proper impact. Slowly draw those in, but without letting it fall. All right, we got it. All right, that's that part. Now I think probably the next part to put on will be the toe link. So let me go grab that and get it going. All right, so the toe link is pretty straightforward. Just 3 bolts hold this center section on. They make a kit where you can replace all this with Heim joints, but I really don't see any reason not to use what I have here. Seems to work fine. If it was okay for the boys at Corvette, it should be okay for us. Again, all this is going to have to be lined up and toe set and everything else once we get it on the chassis, but just get it back to roughly where it was. And it's a long thread, which, you know, you want a long thread. But all these rear independents have toe in, toe out, camber, caster. You can adjust a lot of these things. Well, not caster, but camber. All right, and then we just put that down in the hole. Looks like I gotta thread that in a little bit more. Ooh, that kind of feels like it bottomed out where it was before. There. And put the castle nut on. All right, a couple of cotter pins and that's done. All right, so now that pretty much wraps up the reassembly, other than the trailing arms, so we'll do those next. All right, trailing arms are next. I'm gonna Just throw these on, super easy. Won't go through here. Then one of these double D washers, short dog bone on top. Another double D washer, and a nut. Same thing on the bottom one. Double D. Double D. And a nut. Now, we'll cinch those up. I gotta lift this side up a little more. No, this way. All right, let's try that. And that should do it. Wrong impact. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to put on this bracket. Not that we need it right this minute, but you'll see why in a bit. Did I grease those? I don't think so. All right, so again, you got to have this energy suspension grease anywhere where this stuff touches metal. That's what they recommend. So, and that's what keeps it from squeaking. Otherwise, it's just a squeaky mess. All right. I got the nuts on the inside on the other one. So I'll just slip them in. And this will become obvious in a minute, but I'm going to put another stanchion on the jig to pick up this bracket, holding it at the appropriate height. And then that way, when I go to, but the bracket will be removable. So when I go to slide this under the car and pick it up, I can just take off this bracket that holds this piece. So I'll show you that in a bit. All right, and then the next is the brakes. Okay, there we go. That's pretty much it for the rear independent. Now I've just got to put the brake calipers back together and put that all back on. But super nice working on it at that height. It just makes it so much easier. Anyway, all right, I'll bring you back for the next step. Okay, so let's throw the brake calipers on. First thing is the rotors. I had powder coated these, the centers, and then had my buddy Randy turn them. Just clean them up a little bit. They were really good shape anyway. But, you know, now this won't get all rusty. So that's the key takeaway. Now, first step is the bracket. The caliper bracket's got to go on. Slip that over. Yeah, okay. Then we'll whip those on. I believe that's an 18. All right, we're almost done here. And I've got to do a little bit more work to my stand. And on the next video, I'll show you the pictures of the final look of that. I think I also want to rig up some sort of setup similar to what I have here with these screw jacks. But I'm not exactly sure what that looks like yet. Okay, so that's in. Squeaky pin goes on the inside. My pad's in. Everything's looking good. Now, not sure why that's not collapsing all the way yet. May have to spread that. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so now this goes on. This is kind of tricky because this back bracket kind of binds up the bottom bolt a little bit. So there we go. I'll just tighten that after. So this has a little socket head cap screw, Allen screw for the bottom. Okay, now, and then on the top, there's a little, oh great, the spring's right in my way. I might have to remove that to get this in. Yep. There it goes, okay. Spring is off. Now, put the bolt in. That's just a little return spring for the emergency brake. This is interesting. There's little springs on the top of the brake pads that push the caliper out. And so you got to keep some pressure on that while you tighten up the the bolt. So, and then you got to hold the backer for the slide tube and tighten the 15 millimeter headed bolt here. All right. Okay. Now I got to do the same thing on the bottom with the Allen head. Not sure why they wouldn't just put Allen heads on both sides. They obviously needed the Allen head down here to clear this bracket. But what are you going to do? All right. This is looking good. Fully assembled, ready to go. Slap into the new frame when I get it built up. So now let me just pull that back again and hope I don't send this careening across the room. There we go, come on. Ow, gotcha. I slipped on the other side and the spring took off and literally went halfway across the garage. And, well, the garage isn't the cleanest right now, so I had a bit of a time finding it. Okay, there it is. Sorted. Perfect. I got a little WD-40 on the brake rotors right now just so they don't get rusted up. You know, because this will sit for quite a while now. But, like I said, it's on a nice stand. Got wheels on it. I can roll it wherever I want it. Keep it out of the way. So that's the plan. And the next step, I've got to just weld up some brackets for the these front supports. they're going to look somewhat like this, or somewhere in there. And like, voila. So going to do something like that, tie this all together, make it so that, you know, everything's in the right place, and then these brackets will come off to mount to the frame when it's ready to go in the car. So the idea is you can basically lower the frame right down over this jig and have your car, you know, pick up all the points. The brackets on the ends here swing out of the way, supposedly, maybe, kinda, ish. Looks like I put them on backwards, so no, they won't. They gotta swing in, not out. So either way, we'll make it work, even if I have to take them off completely. So, yeah, that's about it for today. Hope this helps somebody out. I didn't detail putting those calipers back together. It's kind of a pain because of the way the e-brake is and everything, but it is a very nice setup. Once it's all together, it's, you know, very affordable, reasonably priced parts. And, you know, I went through and powder coated and painted everything that GM would normally leave raw, so I think this will continue to look good for a number of years. I got a few days into this now, probably 5 or 6 days into this rear end project, maybe 4 full days. Nah, maybe 6. Either way, pretty happy with it. Certainly saves a lot of money. So if I can make this work, and maybe one of the next steps I'll do is I'll design a Gen 1 Firebird or Camaro chassis for, you know, full frame using the C4 suspension. I haven't seen one of those around yet, so that could be a nice little project. So anyway, we're going to call it quits here for today. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to try to get this video done and published tonight. And yeah, then I got to clean this garage because I got a project with a buddy of mine bringing a boat over, and we got to put a motor in his wooden boat. The same boat we flipped over a couple years ago because he had to redo the bottom. Well, he's all done. We're going to put the old, I think it's a Buick 350 in it. It's 1963. It is heavy, so got to rig up some stuff to do that. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, all that jazz, and we'll see you next time.